alaikum, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Duckstories run by Telenor Velocity. मेरा नाम सानिया एजाज है. I work as a manager corporate innovation for Telenor Velocity, which basically is a startup accelerator for Telenor Pakistan. And today we have a very special guest with us, a very special speaker. We're here with Ali Mehdi Rizvi, a general manager at Airlift Technologies, and I'm sure all of you who are joined in know that there was an influx of investment coming in this year. In 2021 alone, startups have received around 250 million USD in venture capital funding so far. And this is outspacing the 66 million that was raised into 2020. Out of all of this, of course, Airlift alone recently raised $85 million in the largest ever funding round for Pakistani startups. This round is also the largest Series B by a startup in the Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan, and includes some very high-profile investors, as you all would know. So, welcome, Ali. Today, I'm really happy to have you on this platform, and really looking forward to the discussions that we're going to have regarding your Airlift journey.
Thanks a lot, Sanya, for having us and for inviting us to be a part of Telenor Velocity's Duckstories.
Thank you. So we're going to talk just a bit about Duckstories as well. Entrepreneurs and professionals, we rarely recount our personal stories or anecdotes about failure. And that's why current knowledge on the entrepreneurial failures and the ecosystem and the businesses that are failing in Pakistan, they're quite fragmentary. So we basically run this platform, we run this event series just so that we can have people talk about failure as if failure is back into fashion. It's a platform that discusses not just failures, but how people learned from them, or what were their journeys or struggles, and how they got out of it. So today we're going to hear the inspiring story of Airlift from Ali as well. And I hope that we get to talk about some of the failures and learnings about the time that you guys pivoted, and then now reaching to 85 million Series B financing round milestone. So my first question to you, I think, Ali, is just a year or so ago, Airlift was launched as a transit system, app-based ride-sharing, decentralized mass transit system. And that allowed users to book the ride aboard buses, and these buses followed a fixed route with pre-decided stops. So ये पूरा एक plan था, and I think it was a great idea. Personally, I feel when you guys launched, I think this was something that was very much needed in some of the major cities in Pakistan. And you guys quickly a mass traction. You clocked over, I believe, 35,000 rides a day. That's what I was reading a couple of days back. However, obviously with COVID, that halted your operations, disrupted all mobility in the country, and overall you guys had to decide to make the pivot to Airlift Grocers. So I just want to know from your experience, because you were one of the pioneers of the company as well. So what brought upon the decision to pivot to Airlift Grocers?
So that was like a pretty though difficult, but also like at times a lot of change. As it's widely publicized, so we had to, due to the advent of COVID, where a business model which directly relied on bringing people together, we had to, if not for even any specific Airlift, but for the generally public health reasons, we had to pause it. And it was a time of great uncertainty. Like there was a lot of business models, whether that's accommodation or that involved people physically coming together that were at like experiencing a lot of volatility or risk at that time. So we were like, since we had to pause Airlift run, we were looking for something else to do, open up a new line of business, and go into a new area. We had the funds, we had the team, we had an amazing engineering team. So primarily the decision to go into Airlift Grocer, which was then known as Airlift Grocer, which is now Airlift Express, there was a great customer need in the market for a service like that, because I don't know if you guys remember, but people were scared of even going to superstores at that time. Everyone was told that it's safe to be indoors, yet the basic necessities that you need, whether it's grocery, or any food items or any toiletries or anything like that. That was the main reason for people to go out to these grocery stores. But then everyone was coming to the grocery stores. There was queues and there was the risk of pandemic spreading through there. So there was a clear need for customers to have a service that would deliver to them, but also deliver to them instantly the items that they can't afford to wait next day or 3 days or even 4 to 6 hours. So there was a clear need in the market. On our side, we had experience building technology. We had experience building technology that moved people, and we had experience of setting up a business from scratch. So we saw this as an opportunity to build up a new line of business, which would, so to speak, be resistant to COVID, because if people are not traveling to their offices or universities or even to the markets, they would need to eat and consume, and they would want a service that delivers those necessary items to them at their homes and as quickly as possible. And that was why we came up from the day one with this 30-minute delivery proposition.
No, wonderful, and you're absolutely right. I mean, COVID did come at a time, all of the business halted. You just took me back to 2 years ago when this entire episode began. There was a lot of, obviously, people were scared to go outside and people were not comfortable to buy their groceries, even go to the grocery store. So I think this was a good decision and a good way for you two guys to pivot. But coming back, I think Ali, एक और चीज that I wanted to ask you was कि आपके experience के basis पे, over the past years, I've seen a lot of startups face problems due to the COVID pandemic, and many people tried to pivot. It's not like just one startup. A lot of people try to change their business model, go into something different. But आपके experience से, how do you think, what is the best way for a startup to pivot? What factors do you have to consider? And of course, please be more than welcome to share your own personal or professional experience during the Airlift pivoting days.
So I think pivoting is necessarily like a pretty difficult process, and there's I do believe that it would be the situations or the circumstances would be different for each particular startup. So this is, but I think one advice that we learned was that when we had to pause Airlift Transit, and this actually came about due to more of an exogenous shock. Like sometimes startups have to pivot due to their own reasons. For example, there's lack of funding, or their idea isn't getting traction. But in our case, there was more of a clean break. But what that clean break sort of allowed was to think up from scratch how to build the Airlift grocery business. So one key or one great decision I believe that we made in those sides was that people often think that what we already have working on one side, we just try to reapply that on another side. Whereas in our experience, the right way to build the business is actually to understand the consumer and the market and the basic problems that there are. What are those problems? What would be the solutions to those problems? And then if you're lucky, you already have some of that technology or capability built in, or in some cases, you have to build it up from scratch. Whereas if you have a solution looking for a problem, that is typically not a great idea to do a pivot. And generally, just being very confident of learning about a business from first principles. None of us on our team, either on the engineering side or in our core business side, had any experience of running a e-commerce business even ever in our lives. It was purely a logistics or a transportation business. But we went in with a very strong thesis. We knew that we set an ambitious goal for ourselves that we have to deliver the large assortment of items within 45 minutes, and let's just work backwards from there of what would it take to get there, and even build from scratch if we have to. So that was how we approached it.
And I actually am just by abhi aap baat kar hi rahe hain, so it takes me back to the fact that you guys must have faced a lot of challenges during that time frame. Pandemic bhi chal raha hai, a lot of things happening, panic bhi ho raha hai. So I just wanted to ask a follow-up question. What are some of the key challenges that you remember? Or I'm sure there must be many team ke challenges honge, sab log remotely काम कर रहे थे, और भी obviously technology related भी challenges होंगे, launch day, whatever. But मेरा सवाल is कि like what are some of the key ones that you feel you guys faced as a team, and how were you guys able to come out of that?
So those were exactly, like, if I start counting, there were like a lot of challenges. One of them being more about like closing off. One of them, like, there's people who joined with the motivation of being a part of a transportation business, which at the time wasn't there. So I was bringing the team together. They were also like we were in the middle of it. Like, if you remember, we also raised a Series A1 financing in the middle of the pandemic, and so we were actually lucky to raise like a good round on a business that didn't exist or that had zero revenue at that time. So it was convincing our investors of a vision and of a plan of execution, which was what there was this the more apparent ones around everyone being remote, the cities being in lockdown, and the cities being in lockdown, us not able to see each other. We couldn't like more often come together to, like, people might come together on a table to discuss a new idea together, but we had to do it all remotely. And this was also a business like a building an integrated supply chain for groceries, where you had to go out, get warehouses, figure out how to build out a warehouse, which neither of us had done, and then register with suppliers, get the inventory in, build up a delivery fleet, getting our first customers, providing that support. So but I could continue down that list, but what's really is the key skill that helped us solve those challenges. One was like there was this self-confidence or ambition that we will be able to figure things out. If this is a problem, let's just break it down. Let's just see what would need to be true to solve it down. Then also everyone on the team coming together behind the shared vision. So each person on a team has their own sets of superpowers and skills, and they were just like, okay, this is something where I feel confident that I can take a stab at it, and everyone would then be trusting them to take it, and just like, and then also being there to support each other. For example, if there's someone who is taking on the challenge of building the supply chains, and if they face any problem, like being open about your problems to the team and requesting for support, and then us and other people on the team supporting them with that. So we were really lucky with and this was more of the Airlift culture that we are in this together. We know that there are going to be problems, but we will solve these problems.
No, and you guys really did come out strong. And I'd like to move the discussion forward to the part where you guys pivoted and ab aage kya hua. So I believe in July 2020, you guys expanded into the groceries with the launch of the 45-minute grocery delivery service in Lahore. Lahore mein pehle launch kiya tha. And then obviously this is last year, so grocery delivery was getting into like becoming a crowded space in Pakistan, right? And there were very few players offering the fast day, same day delivery model. But abhi bhi hain, aur bhi obviously there are competitors. So my question is, how do you guys manage to create your own secret sauce and maintain that promise that you are delivering to your customers?
So the secret sauce in that case, which actually I would say isn't that secret either, is that you have to provide the ideas of the best customer experience, and you can break down the customer experience into multiple areas, like having the most reliable ordering service, that if as a customer, whatever you order, you get it. This was the gap that we saw in the market, that with the conventional players, that customers would place an order for 10 things and they would only get 5, and they'd be like really frustrated. So this was something that was more like a absolute that we have to be 100% reliable to our customers. We made a commitment to deliver within 45 minutes. We will deliver it on our commitment. We will have all the optionality that any regular household will need at the most competitive prices. And there shouldn't be a reason for someone to not use us and either use our online or offline competitors. So we were the first ones to offer 30 to 45 minute delivery beginning the 1st of July when we first launched. And I think it was up till like in late November or early 2021, where we did have the space to ourselves. When it was after that when we had more of this entrance coming into the space. But what we built at that time was, so typically like a lot of companies have a great customer experience in the beginning, and the key challenge to solve is then when you grow beyond a single retail property to multiple properties in the same city, and then multiple cities all over the country, how do you retain that commitment to operational excellence and delivering the right customer of experience? So we build a lot of internal systems, processes, tools, technology-driven features to solve for that, which allowed us to like grow like a bamboo stalk, and just so spending those months in doing the hard work, preparing for that scale, preparing to not just grow but also to grow while maintaining or even improving the customer experience. So that's how we after the Airlift was what we built.
All right. And I think I read somewhere very, very recently that within the first 12 months of your launch at your company, so Airlift reportedly has been able to reduce its cost of blended customer acquisition to $5 and a unit cost to $2.50. How did you manage to achieve that? I just want to understand how are you guys able to do all of this?
So when we started, like no one didn't know about us. So and people didn't know what Airlift Express was, or people weren't very receptive to the idea of purchasing fresh produce online. So we had to make more efforts to get our first few customers in, therefore like the higher customer acquisition cost. But we always believe that we grow not by acquiring more and more customers, but the true engine for growth would be retaining every customer that we acquire, not letting them leave the platform, and actually bring more of this spend onto the platform. And which the prerequisite for that is that the platform has to deliver like the industry-leading customer experience. And the after effect of delivering an industry-leading customer experience is that word starts traveling. The most powerful channel always is organic marketing and word of mouth marketing, and people referring to their friends and family. And once that sort of like started snowballing at an aggregate level, we had to, more of our customers were coming after hearing about it from the social circles on the friends and family than from seeing an advertisement online or offline, which therefore like blending together reduced that cost by half. So that's just and besides that, obviously there's always also tactical improvements in the way we were doing digital marketing on Google and Facebook, and we learned a lot from that as well. So which drives some optimizations in bringing down the cost as well. But the core reason to be able to do that was that it was more people wanting to come off the platform than us wanting people to come to us.
And in terms of the market dynamics, so where do you think Airlift is currently sort of growing more in terms of word of mouth and a lot of the services that you offer? Karachi is obviously a big market. Lahore bhi hai, sub markets ke apne dynamics hote hain. So I just want to get a holistic view of your view of the market and how you guys were able to capture it.
Yes, so so there's like two sides to that expansion. So one of that is the geographic expansion. We started with Lahore, then the next one was Karachi and Lahore, the KLI or the major metropolitan cities of Pakistan. And then from there on, we moved to like the relatively smaller ones like Faisalabad, Peshawar, Gujranwala, Sialkot, where we are today. And we initially launched one of those cities as an experiment. We ourselves had the conception that maybe this might be only resonating in the major urban areas, metropolitan areas, and may not work as successfully in Faisalabad, but it did beyond our expectations. So we then did double down on these markets as well. So we are seeing a lot of growth within these major metropolitan Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad. There we still see a lot of room to grow and are continuing to see like growth within these cities. But we also now have the relatively smaller cities driving a lot of growth from us, and they're far more in number compared to the three metropolitan cities. So there's growth within the cities, and then there's also we expanded into different categories on our platform. We started with just the very basic groceries, but then we expanded into fresh produce, we expanded into stationery, fresh meat, sports goods, and other assortments and categories on the platform. So now,
wonderful.
Even for the same customers, they're purchasing more from us.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I'd like to just pause here and let the audience know that we do have a Q&A section. So if you guys have any questions, just think about them during this discussion and just pop them in the Q&A section. Thodi der ke baad, of course, we'll be coming to you guys as well. And if you guys have any questions regarding investment, scale, pivoting, anything whatsoever, we'd love to hear from you. Ali, I'd like to move now to the last bit of the discussion, and that was purely around the recent news. So I believe Airlift, when you guys moved into the grocery delivery last year, you guys had about $10 million in Series A1 round, I believe. That's what I captured. And then in the recent news, for those who may not know yet, Airlift raised $85 million in Series B recently. This investment was co-led by international investors. So it was led by Harry Stepping from 20 VC Explorer and Josh Buckley's venture. Obviously, there were other big names in this investment round as well. There was former Y Combinator president Sam Altman, Twitter co-founder Biz Stone, and many others as well that I would, obviously you can read about them in news as well. But DoorDash, a lot of different good names coming forward. And then the company revealed earlier, obviously in the news as well, that the business was valued at $275 million. Now, this is huge news for the Pakistani ecosystem. I was just talking to Kalsoom and Misbah the other in the previous Duckstories episode, and we were also just discussing of how far this ecosystem has come, and this is a good way or a good sentiment or testament for us going forward. You can see the bright future basically for startups raising investment and getting attraction from other VCs. So my first question to you, Ali, in this regard is, first of all, congratulations. Obviously, you guys did it, and made us all really, really proud. And in your opinion, how essential is it to reach out to the right VC firms and investors when you're raising funds? And how should they decide who to approach? Because you guys obviously had a series of people. So did you guys, have guidance? Did you have mentors? Kaise aapki journey ye aage gayi?
Yeah, so I go into the multiple take it in multiple directions. So it's like really, really important to go to the right VCs, because at the end of the day, money is just like money. There's like more of a commodity, and what the primary value that you want from your venture capitalist try to get is how would they be helping you grow in addition to the money that they would be providing. And that would mean that what has their experience been, how well of thought partners are they, how would they be supporting you when you as a company would be facing challenges that could be like that could be as simple as just these venture capitalists connecting you with other companies in their portfolios who may have had similar challenges, and providing that network that you can just ask someone else who had gone through that journey earlier than you, either in Pakistan or in a different market, and just learn from providing the network that you can learn from to solve similar challenges that any early stage company might have. They might be able to provide like a lot of advice, a lot of guidance, a lot of strategic input themselves. And also the fact that the best VCs, while they're always open to help, they also aren't very demanding as such, they trust the founders, they trust the teams to manage and run the business themselves without being too overly involved to the point of micromanagement. So also allowing the founders that space to be able to do that. So I believe as with any other kinds, as with any industries, there's great VCs, there's good VCs, and then there's there may even be like not so good VCs, even if they have all the money. So it's very important to figure out who could be the great VCs for your startup or your endeavor. And also if you look at the venture capitalists, some of the venture capitalist funds are more specialized. For example, there are funds that specialize in the very early angel to seed stages, then to the Series A, C to Series A, Series A to Series B, and there's some growth or late stage funds. So since it's like every fundraising, it's a tough process, and it takes a lot of time, and especially takes a lot of time of the founders and the CEOs, and it takes time away from executions and solving business problems to raising funds. So you want to be also have a thoughtful strategy of targeting the right people who would be willing to invest in your stage. For example, some funds are very specific that they wouldn't invest in early stage companies, they would invest in more Series C, D stage companies. So you wouldn't find much value reaching out to them. Might get lucky, but typically the strategy should be to prioritize those that are at your stage. And then there are funds, there are quite a venture capital funds that invest across many different areas like e-commerce, fintech, transportation, mobility, deep technology, AI, or there will be a few that are invest more specifically into e-commerce or into fintech. So it's also to identify whether the firm that you're trying to reach out to, or the partners at the firms that you're trying to reach out to, whether they have any preference for your sector or not for your sector, or are they more agnostic. So it's really important to identify who would be the right venture VC partners for you. And then again, it's it is also a numbers game. So with every successful VC fund that you get a yes from, there would be maybe 20 no's that you get. So
that's true. And how quickly do you think startups need to start looking for funding after their launch? Because after experience, I think when you launched into Airlift Express, you already had funding. So how quickly do you think startups should raise funds?
So one part is that I think except for the angel rounds or the seed rounds, I think startups should go into, or maybe Series A, after they have this concept of like validated product market fit, which basically means that the product that they're offering is getting traction with customers. Customers are using on a repetitive basis. They are being retained on the service. And because if you don't have that solved, if you don't achieve product market fit, it's not a great idea to even grow and scale the business before you do that. Yes, angel and seed investment could be given to a founder, could be raised by a founder just to build a very early team that would try to build a product that would and have a very early, very small go-to-market. So this is that you need to have like a validated product. And once you have a validated product, once you're confident that it will succeed, then it would be the time to just move quickly, approach these investors, get venture capitalists, VC funds in, and build your early teams, build your early operations, and go to market as quickly as possible. Then there are a few other dynamics that matter. For example, that are more specific to startups. Some startups have high fixed assets or high operating costs, and they may need more capital earlier than startups that don't have large operating costs. Then there are startups that have like long regulatory requirements, like in the fintech space. So over there, it may depend for the startups to raise funding after they have received a license or before. I'm not entirely sure, but I think then there's like company specific factors that come into play. But you obviously want to be that in a point of foresight. So you wouldn't want to be raising funds just when you're starting to run out of funds. You ideally would have these funds locked and in place much earlier than when you are really forced to raise funding.
Definitely. And I think I want to touch about this, Ali, very briefly. I know so you were closely associated or closely related to the entire experience of the pitch and the fundraising. I'm sure the founders were the ones doing the actual pitch to the investors. But I just want to get your opinion of your experience on, how was the pitching experience with investors? What makes or breaks that pitch? What worked? And what didn't work?
So I think what goes into a great pitching experience is that being able to provide the right level of information in a concise and comprehensive way. Like the dynamics are that you only have a few, you have a small amount of time to get a very complex idea across and convince someone to give you in the like up to hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. So it's important to think what would be the most relevant to the investors at each stage. For example, at the very seed stage, it's a lot about what your idea is at a very basic level. Who's the team? How is the team coming together? And what is the size of the market that you're trying to target? And what are your ideas around the technology? And to be able to communicate that effectively and in a more way, in a way that like lends credibility, will make a great pitch. Whereas in startups, like if startup is going into 5-year profit and loss projections when they're still at the very seed stage, that's probably wouldn't be the right pitch in my opinion, because everyone knows that no one knows anything at the seed stage. It's all about the quality of the people, who they are, and what idea do they have. Does the idea make sense, and is that a big enough pain point? And then as the company, the Series A deck would have to look much different from a seed deck, and because at that point you're expected to have a working product, so it's a lot more metrics driven. It's you rely a lot more on yes, you claim that you have the success, but what are the metrics that are proving the success? And then from that point to the Series B. So this is the information that you want to get across to investors, because at least especially so in the international markets, actually the reality is that there's more capital and less of like the founders, that less founders. So actually founders are the ones in short supply, and it's actually investors who are looking to deploy their capital. But what they want is more confidence that the people that they're betting on would be able to be successful with their capital. And this is what I really want to do.
Thank you. You actually just put it all into context for the audience as well. And just another reminder to you guys, there is a Q&A section. So if you guys have any questions, just put them forward. We're almost reaching the end of the conversation as well. So we'd love to hear from you guys, and anything that you want to ask Ali, or get his perspective on regards to Airlift and investment scale, anything, just pop up your questions there. Ali, I want to also ask you, so I understand there are so many different investors that are involved with this round, and specifically the previous one as well. आप लोगों का, what is your experience like maintaining expectations from multiple investors, both local and international? And is there like a sort of like a difference between the relations or the kind of expectation या relationship जो आप रखते हैं between local and international investors?
Actually, there isn't much. I believe that even like the local investors we have like great investors, and we believe like they wouldn't be otherwise very different from the other top tier international investors that we have, so to speak. So there's like isn't really a need to create that distinction for us between local and international investors. But what's more important is to have like an implicit understanding of how to best have that relationship. So for example, on part of the company, we try to over communicate and like every month and every quarter send detailed updates to all of our investors, explaining our strategy, being very transparent of what are some of the things that we have been successful, or even what are things that we haven't been very successful and may need help on. So that just builds that trust, because if someone is saying yes, we are all successful at everything, maybe that might come across as lower credibility. So just being very transparent, being very honest, also proving that success. Like if I was an investor, and if there was a proven success from a founder, like I would want to stay as much away from that as possible and let them do their thing. But also on our side, so we also have very supportive investors who, as I mentioned earlier, support us in a lot of problems that we have. And our local investors in that sense have also been helpful in helping us with problems specific to Pakistan, where they would have more context with an international investor may not have.
That puts a lot of things into perspective. Yes, you're absolutely right. And what are some of the lessons is pure process mein? I'm sure you guys learned some wonderful lessons during your entire experience raising investment from pre-seed, from where you guys began to Series B now. So if you could just sum up some of the major lessons.
So I think some of the lessons that we have is that you really have to obsess and be on a mission to solve a particular problem that is someone else's problem, or that is your customer's problem. So your first and foremost consideration should be how effective are you in solving your customer's problem, or providing them with a delightful experience. Then you want to be surrounded with a great team, have a right internal culture within the company, build that culture, and more importantly, sustain that culture while you grow. Because if you've read Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast, it's always what comes down to that. Then be very transparent about your problems and your challenges. What are you doing well? What are you not doing well? And where you like help within the team, as I mentioned, and even outside with the people that you trust, being your investors, and seeing things like these valuations or these numbers not like as goals in itself, or not as vanity metrics, but more actually we see this as more of a, now we have even bigger responsibility to use that capital to solve these problems at a much larger scale in Pakistan, across Pakistan. And yes, there is some reason to celebrate and see this as an achievement for the ecosystem, and not just ourselves, but then also so with great expectations come great responsibilities.
Absolutely, wonderfully put. And Ali, is there any parting? So I'm आपका personal experience भी है ना एक तो with Airlift, so you've been there from almost the get-go, from the very start. So any parting words of advice, anything that you would like to say to the audience, अपने personal story से कुछ भी अगर आप share करना चाहें?
So from my personal story, what I'll share, and I presume if for any students or any young professionals or early career professionals, if there are in the audience. So I spent most of my career in the startup space. So I was previously at Careem, that too in the early days in 2017, and that was the time when Careem wasn't as famous. And actually, it's that in these early teams. So, for example, when we were recruiting for people in the team, it's very hard to convince people to join a team that isn't successful yet. So, whereas a lot of people retrospectively say that they wish they'd been part of Airlift much earlier, but it's actually the other way around. At that time, it was us trying to convince people. So, and so the suggestion to that is and when I joined Careem was very successful, but being at that time, being early, really optimized a lot learning. I was able to learn in 6 months, which in a 50-year company, people may not be able to learn in 6 years. And yes, the cash wasn't as great. There wasn't any fancy titles of a multinational or a bank. It was a company that was relatively unknown, much earlier in stage. And naturally, these companies have a lot of risk attached to it. For example, there are statistics that very few startups make it past and make it to a successful exit. So there's obviously taking that risk. But if you don't have any extenuating financial circumstances, for example, I know some people may have that, so it's not for everyone. They might have bills to pay or people depending on them. So with that understanding, if that's not the case, then I would encourage everyone to optimize for learning, be in that place where you can learn very quickly, and also learn quickly yourself, where you have challenges to solve, but no one else to look up to, and you have to figure it out yourself how to do that, because that helps you develop that meta skill of learning to learn, and also in a very quick space. And this is just found in very early stage startups where there's too many problems to solve, too less people, you're growing there very, very quickly. And the skills that you learn there, people may not learn in a decades. So to those people, always optimize for learning, and always learn these general problem solving skills that would not just allow you to solve a specific problem, but any problem. And then also following their curiosity and just exploring stuff. So this would be based on my experience. Advice to people who would be hearing this.
Thank you, Ali, and that's great advice. I think that's also something I also follow in my own career path as well. we will like to move to the Q&A section. There's just a couple of people here who have some direct questions for you. So Mukhtar Omrani is asking you, what was the motivation in naming the service as Airlift? Any specific definition of branding name Airlift?
It's actually a mystery. It was a question that I had when I joined, that I still haven't been able to find the answer to in the past 2 years.
All right, okay. Actually, that's something, as soon as I read the question, I also wondered, what was the purpose or reason behind it. But I think sometimes there are no reason. I mean, we probably don't know why Kareem is Kareem or why Uber is Uber. It's just a name that people come up with. And the stick. So yeah, Hamza Javed, Hamza, this is probably for me. So you're asking for a recorded session of this session, if possible. Just to let you know that this session will be uploaded on Telenor Pakistan's YouTube channel. We will also be sharing it on Telenor Velocity's pages, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. So Telenor Velocity को आप follow कर लें, Telenor Pakistan YouTube channel follow कर लें. You'll be able to access these sessions. Taimur Khan is asking, what's the serviceable target market size in Pakistan? And I believe, Taimur, you're asking directly for Airlift.
So for Airlift Express, if you go with the very broadest serviceable market size, that could be the entire retail industry, which is north of $100 billion. Wow. And that's what we will aspire to. But obviously, if you exclude the villages and the non-digital population, so it gradually becomes smaller at every constraint of the assumptions. So.
I mean, yes, there wouldn't be directly a direct answer because the serviceable market is huge in numbers as well. So Sarah Asif is asking, are there any specific product or design challenges that you foresee coming in now that there is so much VC funding for Airlift? What is it that you need the most help with right now? That's a wonderful question, Sarah.
That's a great question. And so in terms of just understanding it better, it's into product and design challenges. If that's in terms of our technology stack, yes, so our technology stack or our product stack that is always in a state of evolution, and we're continuously building it and improving for it. And we would be doing so. Tying that to the second part of the question of how does that, now that we have more VC funding coming in, which actually means that we'll be using that funding to invest in new markets or going in further in existing markets. And to do that, your product and operations have to evolve to, as I mentioned earlier, to be able to deliver that scale without compromising on experience. And yes, we do have a lot of challenges to solve in our technology in terms of product and design. And actually, now that here where I would plug our recruitment strategy, if you go to our airlifttech.com careers, there's probably more than 100 positions open, and these are all problems to solve that where we need help of really talented people to come join us and assist and solve them.
No, absolutely. Actually, to be honest, when I was reading up that, of course, with the new round of investment coming in, Airlift will be looking for expanding the team. So during the session, I would ask you, how can people, especially after listening to this, know where to apply and which positions to go for? So thank you Ali, for putting that in. Our last question is more of a comment for probably Velocity in general, but Ali, if you have any input in this, do share. So Irshad Anwar is asking, is there any list of venture capitalist firms to support women-led businesses or provide grants? So in your experience, if you know any, of course, you go ahead, and then I would like to pitch in as well.
Most specifically, women-led, I believe, that may choose to focus on. Maybe that's eye-to-eye investor in a way. But otherwise, there's a long list of venture capitalists, and actually Atif Awan, who's our investor, who's one of our lead investors, has invested, I believe, in AimFit, which is a women-led business, and he's very supportive of investing in women. Yeah. And I think there's also lists combined by people. I saw one on that Facebook group called Pakistan Startups, which have a list of all the venture capitalists that have invested in Pakistan. So that could be a good reference material for getting that list of VCs.
Yeah. And Irshad, just to answer your question, yes, so Ali's absolutely right. I2I has I2I Ventures, I2I. So they have a really good program for women. One is called We Raise, with partnership with the World Bank. They do really good. And I think mostly venture capital firms do not have any specific requirement case that a women-led ho ya male-led ho. But there are plenty out there, and there's a lot of Google searching that you can do, a lot of pages that you can follow as well. Sarah's asking again, so another comment that she wants to give is, just want to chime in for last Irshad to check with Last Mile Money at IDEO. They recently launched an accelerator specifically for DFS. So Irshad, more to you, and Sarah, thank you so much for chipping into our conversation as well. I don't know if the participants can see the chat. So Irshad, this one comment was for you. Thank you. I really love it when our sessions get really engaging at the end as well. It just really makes all the effort more worthwhile, knowing that we're not just doing this or just having a two-way conversation, but there are actually more people involved and interested to know as well. We've reached the end of our conversation, Ali, but honestly, it was a pleasure to have you on this platform. आपकी अभी जर्नी हम और भी देखेंगे आगे क्या होगा. मेरे तरफ से जो एक सवाल है वो यही है कि I think my last question to you would be, what does the future look like to you right now for Airlift, and what you see in store? What journey would be like ahead?
So first of all, thanks a lot, Sanya, and the audience for having me here and for asking like really thoughtful and engaging questions. So in terms of like the future for Airlift, so I think it's just the very beginning. We're just getting started. We have only, in terms of our ambitions to grow within Pakistan, to even grow to cities where you may not find a lot of these digital services like Uber or Careem, and to serve those populations as well. Even within our existing markets, like to build more, use technology to empower more and more consumers and businesses. For example, investing more in our supply chain, investing more in our producers and manufacturers, helping them with the distribution channel there. So we have like great ambitions with building the rails of commerce, as we stated. We're also looking to be one of the first or very few Pakistani-born businesses that start within Pakistan and then expand abroad, rather than the other way around. So we have like great ambitions on that side. These will be some of the things that we're really looking forward to and would continue to make an impact. And otherwise, even from our team, and then there was this obviously the pioneering aspect for the ecosystem as well, which like having broken that barrier of 85 million in Series B fundraising, we expect maybe other startups to even break that record very soon. Maybe have like $100 million Series B fundraising and just take that baton from us while we try to forge the path ahead at Series E, C, and beyond.
No, definitely, and actually we're right behind you, Ali. We're rooting for you guys as well. And yes, best of luck for the journey ahead. I would like to thank you. I'm just very, very glad that we got to have this conversation. I know there are still lots of challenges that you guys have to overcome while expanding into the Pakistani market. But I believe you guys have the right mix. Aapne wahi bola ki culture is very important. Team ki motivation is very important, and obviously how the founders are, the leadership is. So I believe you guys have the right mix, and obviously on top of that, led by a really good bunch of investors as well. So all the best to you, and hopefully we'll bring you on this platform sooner, sometime next year, to talk about a bit more about the journey and how you guys have expanded so far.
Most welcome, Sanya. It was great being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And so Asif Ali is asking, what percentage investor want in payback? I think that's the last question. So I'm sorry, Asif, we were just about to close, but I just came across your comment. Ali, would you like to take that?
So I'm not really sure because I'm not an investor myself, but I think actually from a finance point of view, different investors have different ways of their internal benchmarking. Some might think of it as payback, some might think of it as IRR, some of them might think of it as that multiple on invested capital. But I think this would be a question better suited to respond by our investors.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Asif, for adding in your comment. So, thank you, Ali, once again, and of course, with soon enough, we would love to have you or any one of the co-founders again on this platform.
Thank you, Sanya.
Shukriya. Have a great evening.
You too, bye.
Thank you, everyone.